On Life, Death, and Beyond, we welcome Aletheia Sophia. Aletheia Sophia is a writer-teacher and ordained minister rooted in the Cathar lands of southern France. Her work centers on Mary Magdalene, sacred body, awakening, and embodying gnosis, offering a non-dogmatic spiritual path that honors the feminine principle, the living wisdom of Sophia, and the body as a sacred vessel. She is a steward of Les Cantes, a living sanctuary devoted to ritual land-based spirituality and sacred remembrance, and the author of several books, including Womb, Wisdom, and Fierce Feminine Rising. Through her teachings, writings, and ceremonies, Aletheia invites a deeply embodied relationship with ancient wisdom and living word. See the full description about Aletheia in the description and everything that she does. Aletheia's website is aletheia-sophia.com and lescantes.eu. Welcome, Aletheia. Thank you so much for taking the time out to join us today.
Oh, it is my pleasure. Thank you so much for engineering this to happen.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. And before we get diving into our topics, would you share a little bit about where you're from and a little bit about your background?
Okay. Well, I am born and raised in England, but half of my blood is Irish, and it's the half I feel most connected to. I'm currently living in the Ariège region of the French Pyrenees, which is very famous for its associations with Mary Magdalene and other apostles, and then later in medieval times, a movement called the Cathar movement, which was like a form of pure Christianity. I've been in this region about 25 years. I was literally dragged here by my heart. And when I first arrived, I knew it's going to be very, very difficult to leave, but I did leave, but I just kept coming back again. So I'm an English, Irish, Celtic rose, drawn powerfully to the sort of apostolic, pure, early Christian teachings. And now I live here, right in the heart of it all, where in a big place, very big place, where we accept all kinds of wonderful people like ourselves to stay with us, and obviously incredible healing, spiritual, soulful things happen.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, and I think it's very magical. Over there. I've done some research. I was called a few years ago after my awakening and the near-death experience that I went through to research my history. And so I did the DNA, and a lot of my history comes from UK, England, Ireland. And I always felt this inner draw to that. And there is like this magical, mystical, just presence that like I feel about it. And then whenever I went on a 3-week like retreat there, I went traveling around. It was I just loved it. It's such an amazing place over there. I'm in the USA. I'm third generation here. My great grandfather moved here, but didn't keep full citizenship over there, like a dual. So it's kind of hard to get over there, whenever I want. But it was a fun journey over there exploring. So
I think there's a Celtic thread that stretches from the French Pyrenees all the way through England and then obviously onto Ireland and Scotland. And on top of that is the early Christianity, but underneath it, which is what I love, as well as the early Christianity, is this super familiar Celtic spirit, this land-based worship. And, just a minute ago, me and you were talking about goats. I absolutely have that land-based worship, as well as the worship of the spirit and the divine. So
Yeah.
I find everything here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's important, I think, to have that land connection. I think it's
Mm.
really very grounding, spiritual, being connected with it, back to our roots, and
Yeah.
finding out who we truly are,
Yes.
through that.
I was doing a little somatic contemplation the other day, and I realized we are a local nervous system, and we're being not bombarded, that's not the right word anymore, exposed to a global citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, it's really important to have something in that local vicinity, like a tree, a field, a spring, a woodland, your own garden. We need an ally. We need a very powerful friendship in our local area in
Mm-hmm.
order to expand, as we do every moment we come online, into global citizenship. But I fear for what if we don't have that local vicinity? What if we're just global, global, global? That was just a little contemplation.
Yeah, it's interesting to, kind of expand our awareness and kind of think about these things, because I think it can alter and change our DNA, if we don't have certain connections and roots in place,
Yeah.
which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but because we're always expanding. Now, you did mention like a pure form of uh you said Christianity.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you mean by like a pure form?
Way before churches, way before institution, way before any kind of management.
Mm,
Very pure, simple, truthful, honest, raw. That's what I mean by a pure or an early Christianity. Way before even the word Christianity. That's
beautiful.
what draws me. You know,
Hmm.
that group of people, those early, Jesus and the apostles, that's one group. But I'm also very interested in the desert mothers, the desert fathers. So that's like the next generation. Jesus wasn't around at the time, just his reputation, but it was enough to set fire to their hearts. And they're like that, right? We're off. We're off to the desert. We are going to become what he spoke of. And I guess they felt that, well, there's only really one way to do that at first, and that's to go into that silent, vast desert.
So with the pure form, without all the, the religion, the churches, like how do we connect to that? Like how do we get back to that essence?
Well, I don't know if anyone on the call has been watching The Chosen. I have been watching The Chosen. There is a great scene between Jesus and Matthew. And Jesus is preparing for the Sermon on the Mount. And Matthew is asking him a few questions about it. And so Jesus shares, his roughs. He's working on the Beatitude, blessed are the poor in spirit, etc. And so he shares with Matthew the rough version of the beginnings of his sermon. And Matthew is like, wow, that's amazing, Lord. But what is the purpose for this? And then Jesus says it. These are my coordinates. This, which I'm about to share today, tomorrow, this is where you find me. And so it's a mixture of the Beatitudes and the Lord's Prayer. But I love the Beatitudes because I don't feel that has been tampered with too much. Lord's Prayer has been heavily tampered with. But the
Mm,
Beatitudes, those beautiful sayings, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are the meek, blessed are the persecuted. These are the coordinates. This is where you find him, or this is where you find Christ masculine, feminine form.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, because a lot of it has been tampered with,
Yeah.
and as a child, I kind of just knew it. Like I would be sent to Sunday school, and taken, and it just didn't resonate with me. And I'm like, that's not right. That's not accurate. And so I kind of lost interest in it, and then I've never really gravitated to a belief system because it's all to me like control, and it's not true
Yeah.
in the like you said, the most purest form of what it actually is. And so I'd rather do meditation and turn in and get the information that way versus going to a church and listening to
Yes.
things like that, because when you question, they don't want to answer.
Yes.
They're like, well, no, this is how it is, but it just didn't resonate. It sounds like you don't have like a specific religion. Is that right?
Well, yeah, I would just pop that little word early in front of the
Hmm.
word Christian. I'm an early Christian. I follow early Christianity.
Okay.
Like another simple little practice, I have a simple wooden chair, the kind of chair that you'd expect to see in like an educational environment, a school chair, adult education. What I do is when I really need to feel him, is I bring that little chair to the side of my bed. So I'm in bed and I'm looking at the little chair, I'm looking at it, I'm looking at it. I get a really good impression of it. And then by the time I close my eyes, it's still there. And then I pray, I ask for Jesus to come and sit on the chair. And he does. And my body and my mind responds as if it was fully real. I know it's partially real,
Mhm.
but as if it was fully real. And I put my hand out and he takes it. And I absolutely empty what's on my heart. I cannot not do that because it's so visceral, it's so real. Um, so that, to me, that's how close he is. He really is the resurrected Christ, meaning he didn't die, therefore he's like right here, right here. And it's that kind of beauty, that kind of tenderness, safety, trust, and love, which is all I need. I don't need any more than that simple practice of imagining Christ sat on that wooden chair beside my bed in one of my dark moments.
Beautiful. That is a nice practice. Thank you
Mm.
for sharing. Yeah. Now, a lot of religions tend to portray him as a savior. Is that how you see him, as like a savior? I tend to see him more of a teacher, a presence, a guide.
Yes, I see him as inspiration. I see him as behold. And I'm like, yes. All I want to do is follow. He's not teaching so much, he's not prophesizing. He's just being that almighty love, strength, truth, peace, comfort. He is that light. And I just want to go. I just want to go. Yeah, he's everything and more and beyond.
And I just got done doing a conversation. I don't know if you've heard of Richard Martini. He does like hypnosis, and he also was a filmmaker. And a lot of his hypnosis sessions, Jesus actually comes in and gives information, talks, and shares. And during the meditation that he guided me on, he also came in. But I've also had a lot of personal experiences of my own, which I share in that conversation with him, which,
Mm.
not having that like religious background,
Yes.
or belief system of what we believe in religion at this moment, not
Yeah.
the pure form.
Yeah.
Um, he's never really said, I'm your savior, I'm going to save you, you don't have to do your own inner work. These are things like he just shows up and he's he is a presence, kind of like what you were
Mm,
saying. He,
mm,
love, just being, and
mm.
it's not really like gatekeeping you from heaven, those kinds of things because you're going to go to hell. So I feel like religion has come a long way from the pure form.
Yes, yes. I didn't
Mhm.
grow up with religion either. I would go, my father was a Catholic. He'd take me to the churches, but I didn't like it. I was
Mm,
clock watching. I was waiting for it to be over. But what I did enjoy was the art on the walls, the statues, and the free talking, the stories of his life. Then I perked up, but then as soon as that was over again, I was like, how much longer? No, it didn't attract me.
yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love when I went on my excursion over to UK and traveling, I love all the arts.
Mm,
And it is very magical for me. I love the art and the things like that, the culture, like the sculptures, and it's
mm,
also beautiful.
mm,
Yeah.
mm.
So I kind of want to dive into a little bit, on Jesus and Mary. So as far as Jesus and Mary, do you know if they've had, from your understanding, any kids? Is there any lineages that come from them?
I have spent time on Iona, which is a little Scottish island up in the Highlands with a very thin reputation that perhaps Mary Magdalene and Jesus' daughter Sarah also spent time there and set up a first Christian community way before the well known saint of Iona did such a thing. When I went there, I was um, strangely entered a very strong journey of, wow, I completely believe this to be true. There is a set of ruins underneath the touristic ruins where an early nunnery, if you like, let's just say female, voluntary, cloistered holy women, had come to, and there was little inscriptions of the word Sarah and daughter of Mary, and
Mhm.
lots of very, very old ancient symbols of roses and what I would call certainly a female based community. I don't know if it's true or not, but my heart says it's true. My heart believes they had at least one daughter. Other folks will say they also had two sons. So there's a real theme that they could have had three children. I haven't I haven't done any research into the sons. I've just been completely obsessed with Sarah and this connection she had up in Iona. And who were those 12 disciples? It's as if the whole thing, the whole pattern happened again. There's also obviously loads of fabulous tales in Glastonbury of how Sarah married the son of a high druid priest king, and hence the marrying of those two traditions. And they went up from Glastonbury to Iona. She stayed there. He came back down to England because he had to, Glastonbury, sorry, because he had to step into his father's shoes. But every opportunity he had, he returned to Iona, where Sarah and her 12 disciples, knowingly or unknowingly, were just seeding another beautiful embodiment of her parents'
Mm.
legacy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like I said, I don't have any, I didn't really stay with religion and any of the teachings and haven't done really any research as far as this recent year with the other conversation I had about Jesus. But in the guided meditation, and I find it interesting because it kind of leads off to what you're saying. Um, he asked if he had any children, and the name Sarah came to me. And so I find that really interesting, that you are sharing that as well.
Yeah.
So it very well can be, that she was one of the children. Now, again, is there other children? Nothing else came out of that, but it's possible. But,
Yes. Yes.
so yeah,
The
it's really
story.
interesting. And it's hard
Yes.
to kind of really find and follow the lineage because there's not a lot of um, information on it.
No, no. And especially by the time you get to medieval times, the family members would have to have been very undercover.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very, very undercover. So
Mm-hmm.
undercover that probably they didn't know. It would be safe if they didn't know. And then, despite pressure or torture, you can't give in and say, okay, yes, I am, because you actually don't know.
Right.
So
Right.
that's quite a good tactic
Mm-hmm.
for the members of the family to not know.
Yeah. Yeah. And, if religion was taking over and they wanted to hide information, they probably would have destroyed a lot of that. So,
Yes,
mm-hmm.
yes.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. And then also with Mary Magdalene, you were saying that she went on teaching a lot of what Jesus, or she
Well,
started sharing and teaching, and
it seems absolutely that she came to France, which is where I'm sitting. Um, Even in the traditional Bible, definitely in the Gnostic texts, we get to see that Mary Magdalene is really dropping in deep with Christ's teachings, sermons, words. So she is like dropping in, yeah, totally getting it, and coming back up to the surface of her being and just shooting profound questions at Jesus, which is telling him, well, she's getting it, and slightly annoying the disciples because they're
mm,
not getting it. So already we're starting to see that Mary is being really transformed by Jesus's living word. Um, so she's picked up on something. She's got some of this light, and it's growing and growing and growing. By the time she comes to France, I don't feel that she was replicating what Jesus did in the Holy Land. She's got her own understanding here and quite possibly her own task in the way it comes through her.
mm,
Slightly different, perhaps more feminine, perhaps more mystical. But she's got something that the others
mm,
did not get. And so she just, over the course of her time here, sets fire to the mystical hearts of the people here in the south of France. And she is worshipped, not as a Messiah, not like Jesus in the Holy Land, not a savior, not a prophetess, more familiar, closer than that. Just this beloved woman who is so reachable, so attainable, so normal, just like us. She wasn't claiming divinity. And so, even to this day, she is heralded here in the south of France. Absolutely adored.
yeah. And I think there's truth to that because we can all tap into that universal knowledge and consciousness, and we all have a different way of understanding it, what and how it comes to us. I know when I do some channeling, I do tap into some of that information, and it comes to me because it's how I can understand it and perceive it. And so for her to also be able to bring it in a way that she can share it in her own divine way,
Mm,
definitely makes sense.
mm, mm.
Mhm.
there's always a very strong impression. The same with the Cathars, centuries later, Mary Magdalene's spiritual descendants. There's this beautiful union with the natural world. So Mary, because France was occupied by Romans, none of the apostles could really walk around the south of France going, "Hello, I'm here. I'm about to do a sermon." They would have to have been slightly hidden and their gatherings quiet. And all their gatherings were in either woodlands, beside rivers, beside streams. So there's lots of amazing places, natural places here in the south of France that you can go to associated with Mary Magdalene, rather than the churches, rather than the basilicas. And you can just feel Our Lady's presence, in the forest, in the woodland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And didn't Jesus get something mad about something about with the churches and the religions, I believe? Was there something about that?
Yes, there was a great big market happening outside the Jewish High Temple. Lots of animal sacrifice, lots of people making bucks, a lot of money changing hands. And he walked in and he was very upset that in front of the main entrance, what he called to his father's house, people were trading. Goats were being killed, doves were being killed, all kinds of animals, blood all over the place. And he just absolutely went berserk and said, "How dare this be happening in front of my father's house?" And he went into sacred rage and he tipped all the tables up into the air and just blah, tossed all the gold coins off the table, freed the animals, yay. And yeah, and said something like, "In 3 days, you can tear down this temple, but in 3 days I shall rebuild it." And the high priests were like, "Oh, blasphemy, blasphemy."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's really interesting. A lot of people will be like, "Oh, well, he doesn't get mad or anything like that,"
Oh, yeah,
but
he
like,
does.
oh.
Yes, he does. Yeah, sacred rage, sacred justice. Yeah,
Yeah,
course correction. We need course correction.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
But what's
So it does.
interesting, he did not harm one person. The living ones, the animals, he freed. He turned upside down wooden tables and he cast gold coins everywhere. He did not harm the hair of any living being.
Mhm.
And he didn't even accuse nastily wrongdoing, none of that. It's like, this marketplace must not be in front of my father's house. And that's how you can sort of tell what is sacred rage and what is anger. No one's being harmed, no one's being wronged or humiliated or bullied. But what is happening is just simply, no, this is not happening. I
Yeah,
think sacred rage is important.
it is because you're trying to maintain purity,
Mm,
you know.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
protecting something.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of brings up in my mind, a little bit about, I don't know, I've just recently stumbled on a video about they're talking that there was like a book that talks about Jesus's youth, where I don't know if you've come across of it or heard about it, but Jesus was casting spells on people, things like that. I don't know if
Mm,
you've heard about the young years of
no,
Jesus,
no.
but it was like interesting. And I was watching, I'm like, I don't know if that's really true.
Mm,
But I can see from their point of view, if they're trying to make a point with a story that like he casted a spell and the person died, but then he resurrected them, like to show his power. I don't know if that's an accurate.
Mm.
portray of him, because if he is doing that, is he really, you know, who
Yeah.
he's like, they're portraying him in that way, that image.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I
Mm.
forgot who wrote it, but yeah, it was just something that I found on the internet. And I know
Yeah.
you can't always believe everything that you find on the
No,
internet, but
no. I'll have a little look anyway.
yeah, yeah. So it was interesting. But also, there's talk about him, and it kind of makes sense to me because some of his teachings align with Buddhism, and they talk about there's a time and span where he disappeared for a while.
Hmm.
Do you have any recollection or any understanding of where he went during that time?
Only an intellectual one, which is he went to India. I don't
Hmm.
know whether that is true or not. I understand in my mind that he went there for a while. Some folks say that, he was actually here in the south of France in his body after the resurrection. I don't believe that. I'm
Hmm.
going for the fully resurrected Christ. No flesh, only light. Yeah.
Right. Now, from my understanding, also, like to me, I kind of look at the resurrection as him showing us that we continue beyond this life, that this is not the end all, and we
Mm,
all resurrect. And that's part of why he also came back to show us that he's still alive, right?
mm,
And just as he is, we are, if
mm,
that makes sense.
mm.
Is that how you see it, or his a resurrection, or what do you feel, the purpose of the resurrection is?
I do believe that Jesus Christ is an aspect of God. So that wow. You know, so,
Hmm.
really? God became embodied? Yes, I do believe that. God became human. Uh, uh, In our limited perception, we were able to see him as human for a while. Yeah, I do believe that. I believe the purpose of the resurrection is to give us this infinite opportunity to be inspired by his love, his light, or Buddha's love or light. We have this opportunity, this living opportunity, that the moment we say, do you know what, I'm knocking on his door, knock and the door shall be answered. So this door can always be answered because of the resurrection. That's how I feel it.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, with that, I kind of want to talk about, because like from a near-death experiencer's perspective, knowing that we live on and that we move forward, we don't, after we shed the body, we do have our own per se resurrection. We exist beyond here. So wouldn't that be similar to saying that, not that, because a lot of people say that we are God, we're an aspect of God. So that's
Mm,
very similar to that situation that arose when he came back to show us that.
mm, mm, mm. Gosh, I would say there's a choice
Hmm.
that each and every one of us has to make a choice, and that choice can often come through a near-death experience or a brush with like a profound accident or terminal disease or a great and sudden hardship. When we crack open, when we become humble, when we realize just how vulnerable and fragile we are, that decision can often like float by. Um, are we God? Perhaps when we're resonating with that light, we are we are an aspect. We are the radiance of God. But by golly, when we're mostly in our human nature, No, I don't think we're godlike at all. In fact, we can go even further and become brutal and barbaric and even further still, evil and wicked. But we can be that radiance. But we gotta make that choice, and it's gotta be made in a very deep, determined, and diligent place. Because it does take a lot of work, not effort, a lot of vigilance, a lot of coming back to center. Who's speaking now? Who's thinking now? What is my actions based on? What is my decisions based on? It's constant vigilance. Front view mirror, rear view mirror, blind spots, to just keep checking in. Am I heading in the direction of that radiance?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I would agree, because like the more that we're in alignment with truth and love, the more of an aspect of source that we can be. And the
Mm,
further away we get from it,
mm,
the more darkness and then light that we are. The things and actions that we do, our thoughts, our projections, our actions that we take from being in that space that we are.
mm.
Definitely, it makes sense. Yeah. And now you said the Cathars. Could you explain a little bit more about who they are?
Yes. So the Cathars were around in like the 12th, 13th century, here again, southern France. And the local tales tell us that these are the spiritual descendants of Mary Magdalene. Now you got to remember, it wasn't just Mary that was here, it was her sister Martha, her brother Lazarus, and a handful of others from the Holy Land. So there really was this evangelizing of France. There was a powerful group of people here who moved up and down from the Languedoc to Provence, sharing endlessly who they are and what they had seen. And it flourished. It just landed in the hearts of the people that were here. And it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew. And centuries later, it is now a parallel faith equal to the Church of Rome. So in the medieval times, it is shoulder to shoulder with the Vatican. That is how far-reaching Mary's transmission, not interpretation, emanation of the Christed teachings, the Christed way of life. And there was even a suggestion that the next pope could be a Cathar. Now that was the straw that broke the camel's back. As that word kept reaching Rome, it now became seen as a very dangerous threat. And so a crusade was launched against these Cathars, and basically against anyone who might have any kind of association with them. And so it became a slaughter, it became a genocide. And there was a 10-year gap of peace. And then a second crusade came. So the Church of Rome was determined to wipe this out once and for all. And where I live, just up the road, is Chateau de Montségur, which is kind of like a very visual landmark. The shape in the land is like a phallus, and on it is the remains of a very well-known fortified Cathar sanctuary. The Cathars did not have castles. No. Castles took them in and said, hey guys, hey gals, come to the castle, we shall protect you. And so this region, 2 crusades.
Mhm.
And the king got involved, and the king said to his men, "Okay, guys, whoever joins my army, whatever you find, women, farms, animals, keep it. I don't want anything," says the king. "I just want this gone." So the young men who didn't have much at all, they've now been given an opportunity to get a farmyard, to get some women, to get some animals. And so everyone pretty much joined up. And it was just a free for all.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I haven't really heard of the Cathars. Again, I haven't really done so much research into it, but it seems like my journey is headed into doing a lot more research. So thank you for sharing that. Now,
Pleasure.
Mary did have siblings.
Yes, yes, it seems. Again, traditionally in the Bible, Martha is her blood sister. Lazarus, the one brought back from the dead, that is her brother. And
Okay.
even here comes a spanner in the works. Jesus had siblings.
Mm,
He was one of five.
well, yeah,
Yeah. Where did they go? Who are they? That's a really good question.
yeah. That was what I was going to say. Well, where's
Yeah.
their lineage? Because um, if they have that spark within them as Jesus does,
Yes.
you know what I
But
mean? Then
but
there's more lineage.
even if they didn't, that doesn't matter because they grew up with him.
Hmm.
They loved him. They knew him dearly. What
Hmm.
a gift. And if you want to go as far as I've gone, which and this was God, your brother is God. Come
Hmm.
on. That's life changing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
That's
much
that's
so.
gonna change your DNA.
Oh yeah, 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 definitely.
Mm.
Um, and then so where do you tend to find your information? Do you channel information or any guidance that you're getting, or is it all
No.
research?
I go back to good old-fashioned religious texts that are both traditionally Christian and Gnostic. Um, I find the bare bones of what I'm looking for there. And what I tend to do is I take everything through my body, so I'm not a meditator. I'm not a meditator, so I'll take like a little piece and I'll just somatically move whilst holding this piece and just letting the body go on a journey with a beautiful piece of music, a piece of music that is completely supportive of the quality of material I'm contemplating. And then I'll perhaps find the finesse or the essence. So I've got the structure, and then I'll find that the grace, the light that accompanies what I'm researching, and I'm like, got it, got
Mm-hmm.
it. It's never big and revelatory. It is healing and
Mm-hmm.
gentle and loving.
Yeah. So it's kind of like another person would they say it's like contemplating on the information? Is that very similar to what
Yes,
you're talking about?
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes,
Okay. Yeah. And for somatic, for those who are watching, if they don't know what somatic is, can you explain a little bit about that?
yes. The soma, back in the times of ancient Greece, was the body, the physical body, soma. And so, therefore, the word now, somatic contemplation, you know, you could even say it's not just body, it could be because of the body. So, something is happening because of the body. This only arrives, the healing or the contemplation, because you have somatic healing and somatic contemplation. Whether it's a healing or a contemplative exercise, it's only happening because the body is present.
Hmm. Okay.
And I am A, very excited, B, super inspired, C, blown away by what I am discovering through somatic contemplation.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know some people talk about somatic healing and, using that, I guess, like the energy of it. And it's like body movements, kind of like a yogic practice.
Yes, usually it's a lot freer. There's not really too much instruction. There's not, you must do this. You're just allowing body to begin a sequence of movement that will unwind, unravel trauma, stress, anxiety, discomfort, pain, and you
Mm-hmm.
just get to witness a heck of a lot more on the way, on the journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've had my own experience when I first learned about yoga. Um, I had it was like my third session in yoga, and I had an emotional release, and like
Hmm.
just tears just ran down, and I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah,
It was not something that I've experienced before, so I must have been holding on to a lot
that's
because I was
beautiful.
it made me question like what is happening. And then
Yeah.
the next session I had an out of body experience where I seen myself in this ball of light looking down on my body.
Wow.
So the next session took me out of the body. And since then, I've just been on a lot of different spiritual experiences, which
Yeah.
is an amazing journey that
Mm.
I'm finding.
Mm.
Yeah. So
Mm.
somatic is definitely amazing, to move the body and have those experiences. So
Mm.
yeah.
Mm.
Now, I'm sure you've heard of the Sacred Heart.
Yes.
So can you explain a little bit about the Sacred Heart?
Hmm. I would begin to say there's a heart within the heart, because heart and love are used so widely in our language that we're just bouncing around on the surface. So if you go heart, right, yeah, heart. But if I say connect to the heart within your heart, folks would go, ah, yeah, okay. So I'd begin there. I'm then reminded of a Gnostic prayer that tells the participant to go into the heart within the heart and close the door. And that is where you'll meet the Father. So it's like, okay, now we're getting closer still. So we go down into the heart of heart, we close the door. Well, that tells me just close the noise, all the noise, external and internal. We're now in a secret place. There is no other noise. And that is where we'll meet the Father in the living silence of the silent silence. And I think, should we reach that place, Jesus went so far as to like open it up as if to say, I am here, or we are here. This is where I'll meet you. So it's like it's the deepest, most innermost, most fragile, most tender, lamb like, sacred heart. That's how I'd interpret it.
Beautiful.
The heart of the lamb.
Mhm.
If you can imagine handling a delicate little lamb heart, that's still just us on the way, even more tender than that.
Mhm. Yeah, because Jesus is, from what I understand, is very connected to the Sacred Heart.
Mm,
And, a lot of people would say connect to your heart, and it's like, okay, what does that really mean?
yeah, yeah.
It's not like the pumping physical body heart, but more of an intelligence, a higher consciousness, I think,
Mm,
that has all that information, the DNA, from the Sacred Heart. But there's a
Mm,
lot of that I've heard there's talk about, like he did sacred initiations of the Sacred Heart. Have you heard
mm.
anything about that?
No, I haven't.
Mm,
No. Yeah. Phew.
yeah. So that's kind of come my way, a couple times. So I've kind of been trying to look into that, but haven't really found much on it. So I
Mm.
didn't know if you had any information about that. Did they
No.
do Jesus and Mary do any initiations of any kind that you know of?
There's one thing that I love, and it's called the sacred kiss. So, in the Bible, traditional and Gnostic, it seems to me that the deepest teachings, the ones that you cannot word, were passed to one another through a sacred kiss. Just a simple kiss, nothing fancy, on the cheek, on the forehead. I don't know, maybe here, maybe the hand. It's like, Judas, that there's a kiss there. If you look at the Bible, there's lots of mentions of these kisses that seem to like catalyze certain things. Seems to me at the Last Supper, each disciple received a sacred kiss, and within it was his task and duty, the resources he would need when the challenges come, and the directive, the grace of his or her purpose and path. And when I imagine that, I just go, yeah, yeah, that's what he did.
So
And,
like
and if you was to
transferring.
say, can you explain further? I'd go, no, no, I can't.
Mhm.
I don't need to.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like transmitting his
Yeah,
information, his knowledge through the sacred kiss.
yeah. Maybe
Hmm.
even his essence.
Hmm. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. And then I had, like I mentioned a little bit before, like I've had a lot of my own personal experiences. One of them, in amongst of the visions that I've had of him and the experience in my own personal journey, one of them was him standing in front of me with the lamb.
Mm,
Now, he didn't say anything. Like he's never like it's always been images,
mm,
right? And so it's never been like verbiage that I've
yeah.
heard. He just appears and is these images.
Mm,
And for whatever reason, I have this connection,
mm,
with him
mm,
beyond not religious, right? So
mm.
it's just has nothing to do with that. Um, but yeah, he appeared to me and he was holding his arms out with the lamb, and I'm like, I really don't understand what that means. Do
Yeah.
you have any idea what that would represent?
Feels like he would like you to take it. Uh, and you might be interested in how you respond when you take it. Because that's no ordinary lamb. It's going to probably look at you, and you might well see more love and light in that little face, and it's going to blast you right open in the most glorious way.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a lot of imagery and not always diving into it, but yeah, so I might have to meditate on that one and dive
Absolutely.
into it.
Yeah, pick him
Mhm.
up,
Yeah,
pick him up,
yeah.
hold him close. We don't have lambs, we have goats.
Goats.
We
Now,
have
are
goats.
they the same or are they, I guess
No,
it's
very
different.
different. It's a very
Okay.
different creature altogether.
Hmm.
I do believe we will have some sheep, and then one day we will have a lamb. And when that happens, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm very tuned into the Lamb of God, the Lamb of Christ.
Mhm.
And so to actually really hold a physical white lamb, I'm a wreck when I'm holding a goat kid because they're quite similar looking. You
Yeah,
know, it's tapping into something.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you're talking about that, all I can see is like the image of like just peering into their eyes and seeing their
Yes.
soul. So that's
Yes.
interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
I want to kind of go back to like you were talking about like the sacrificing of the animals and shedding blood. What was the purpose of them? Do you know about what they were doing with that? Why were they sacrificing the animals?
Um, well, mostly goats. So
Hmm.
back in those older days, it was called either it was a animal sacrifice given to the temple. So the priests would be killing the animals and receiving the blood as an offering. And otherwise, the goat would be scapegoated. So all the sins, all the illnesses, all the crises that the family might have encountered was knowingly projected onto the goat, and the goat was sent away. So the goat was, no one was allowed to feed the goat. It had to
Mm.
just like perish in the desert. And I mean, you just look at the documentary Christspiracy. This explains what I'm about to say a heck of a lot better than I'll ever be able to say it. But one of the things that Jesus stood for was the ending of these very pagan practices. Like, my father does not require animal sacrifice. He does not require blood. And look at these rivers of blood outside his front door. So he was incensed. And this is what the Christspiracy documentary makers are telling us. It wasn't so much that there was a marketplace and money changing hands outside the temple. It was the blood and the animal sacrifice. That is what he was most outraged by. And then the rest of the documentary just unravels all the way into the industry of factory farming.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can see how that has led to everything, that we do as far as, with the manufacturing.
Yeah.
Like I'm vegan, part of my journey with the awakening
Mm.
and coming back from the near-death experience with everything that I understand, everything just kind of fell away. Like I don't participate in any of that.
Mm.
So it's just not an energy that I want to be a part of,
No,
So,
no.
mm-mm. Is there any projects that you're working on at the moment?
Yeah. I have recently started doing courses with the Shift Network, which has been fabulously well received. I'm so grateful. The first course I did was Mary Magdalene's Sacred Journey Through France. I'm doing one at the moment called Mary Magdalene's Somatic Sacraments. So again, just bringing in the more embodied pieces so that the Christed path is a little more complete. So we've got the beautiful light living words transmissions from Jesus, from scripture, from the Bible, or from his prayers, the Beatitudes. But we've also got these like gorgeous gestures of goodwill that I believe Mary was very generous with here in the south of France. That this was her way, these beautiful touches and gestures of goodwill, passing the ability to pass divine grace from one to the other. I've got another one coming up called The Way of Water. This will be rites, rituals, prayers of cleaning up our local waters and starting to see water now as a sacred element. You know, it's called the source for a reason. And how we could bring water and waters into our spiritual practices.
Nice, beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, would you be taking people on tours to different areas to see
Yeah.
like sacred sites?
Yes, I tend to stay here. I rarely vanish from these mountains. Um, I take people around to the Magdalene sites that's local in these places. And, you know, also where we live, there's a little chapel on the side, which I've named Notre Dame de Sophia, a Mary Magdalene chapel, where all sorts of wonderful, loving things can happen inside of it. So I'm really here. I am really, really based here. My life since buying this place has become such a grounded, anchored place of custodianship, I guess. I've accepted this role. I know I will never move from this place. This is it until my last breath. And I'm here to speak on its behalf.
And I love that you say like the water, because I know whenever I'm in Florida, so I live by the ocean, and whenever I go by there, it like puts me into this meditative state. I just connect to the water, you
Yes.
know. So
You
it's
know,
it's
it's
really
like the baptisms, they were in water. Jesus, he walked on water. There's so much watery
Mhm.
encounters and arrivals in many, I'm just going to say all, the spiritual and religious teachings. You know, the masters used water in many of their revelatory mysteries.
Mhm. Yeah. And that kind of reminds me walking on water. Like when I moved to Florida, right? There's like with the water when it comes in, there's these sand mounds, right? And so like you have water that just barely covers the top of the sand mound and it
Mhm.
goes and then it goes deep and then it goes into the shore. And so at certain times of the day, you can walk on the sand mound and water will be just lightly covering the
Wow.
sand and washing. And it just kind of reminded me like Jesus walked on water.
Yeah, yeah,
In my playfulness, right? It was like I was doing that, you
yeah,
know. It just
yeah,
kind of was just eurythic or eutheric, right?
yes, yeah,
Um,
euphoric.
yeah, and yeah, it was just so much fun, you know.
Mm,
And it's interesting, like, and I kind of want to talk about that because I kind of brought that up because part of it is like, have you heard that they do say, I guess, in the Bible or the teachings, you know, about our youth to be like youthful again. So
yeah,
what does that mean to you? Is it like returning to our our childhood or is it returning to our purest form?
could be our purest form, but I would say it's also a form of complete humility.
Mm.
So you know, we haven't like, I've arrived, I'm here, I've arrived. We're more childlike and we realize that our creator may well be parental and that
Mm.
we're okay with him, her being parental and us being a little child in innocence, in purity, in no big ideas of who we think we are, but open to that. We could be magnificent, but childlike wonder. You know, we have the mind is open to correction. But for me, it's that parental thing. That there's a parental source, there's a parental God. It's like
Yeah.
the Aramaic word that Jesus used to speak about the Father is Abba. And Abba, and the other one, Adonai, Abba is daddy,
Mm.
and Adonai is father. But we hear him in the Bible saying Abba. So he's like saying daddy.
Yeah.
Dear daddy. And I like that. That's just wonderful.
And is there anything else that maybe we haven't talked about that you feel like you wanted to share
Mm,
as far as maybe Jesus or Mary or apostles?
I don't think so. We've had some wonderful illuminating moments.
Hmm.
There's plenty of beautiful pearls and droplets, droplets of loveliness we've
Hmm.
already shared.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Now with the end of life transitions, so what is the most important thing that one would want to focus on in order to make the transition to Source of God, whether we are getting ready to make that journey home outside of the body or just presently in the body? How can we make that connection?
I think we could start with, is my heart right with God? That sentence tends to reveal interesting information. Is my heart right with God? Maybe even a somatic gesture. Put your hand over your heart. Is my heart, is it right with God? Is it lining up well? Mm. And then just start tending to those little things that pop up when you ask yourself that beautiful question. I may say, grab your wooden chair. Grab your wooden chair, put it by the bed, and use that beautiful imagination of yours to put Jesus on the chair. How would you speak to him differently than if you were praying to him? Because the chair and the hand holding tends to bring more, a lot more. And that would certainly get your heart right with God. Those
Mm,
sort of gestures.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think too is like being as alignment that you can possibly be, in the purest form.
Mm,
And because I know just from the experiences that I know, like I didn't really have any like belief systems or any religious doctrines,
mm,
because I strayed from that. So when I did have the near-death experience, like I went right to the void, to the other side, into the light.
mm,
And some people who do have their near-death experiences, they tend to have hellish experiences or
mm.
belief systems or their judgments, they're seeing and experiencing all these things, whereas I feel like if you don't have any of that and you're just open and pure, like you're
Mm.
just, it's like a straight transition.
Yes,
Do you know what I mean?
yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's just coming from a near-death experiencer's experience perspective.
yeah.
So
Sorry.
no, that's okay.
Yeah.
um yeah, and I think the more, you know if you're pulling up the chair or you're doing self work or you know undoing all the doing that we've done in our lives, finding
Mm.
forgiveness, healing, whatever the case may be, if we can get back to that purest state, childlike form, that
Yeah,
helps with our transition to the other side, or just to be present in life,
yeah,
to live from that.
yes, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, so
Mm.
definitely. As part of your legacy and everything that you're doing, because it seems like you are doing a lot, with all the your workshops and what you're doing. Where do you hope to see your work going?
Hmm. I've never asked myself that question. Um, I see myself becoming less of a person and more of a place. I imagine that I'm literally, because I already am, I am pouring myself out into this place, this this property, this animal sanctuary. So I see myself becoming a place, and in that place you feel him. It's a
Beautiful.
non-dogmatic, non-religious, no one's going to try and sign you up for anything kind of place where you will experience him as a parental divine source and her as a embodied sanctuary of loving kindness for all else that lives. That would be my legacy.
Beautiful.
Mm.
Now, with what you're offering, people would be able to come there to where you're at. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And people can also host their own retreats here. It's not my place. It's
Beautiful.
our place.
Beautiful. And with your retreats or what you're holding and providing, what would a person kind of look forward to?
I guess diving into the history of this region, of the Cathars, and coming to know it very intimately in that embodied way. You know, going to her forests, visiting the pools where she baptized. So it's the perfect antidote, actually, to our mad, crazy world right now.
And we definitely need that.
Yeah.
We are definitely going through, what a lot of people call the Great Awakening.
Yes.
There's a lot of shift and awakening. People are waking up and, standing up and saying no more,
Yeah.
because a lot of people are getting tired of it. And we want to get back to our roots, our truth,
Yes.
and love. And there's a lot of that going on, even with the monks that are walking. Have you heard about the monks that are walking?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
for peace and love. Yeah. So my heart is definitely with them because they're going a long way and it's really cold out.
Yeah.
They're very dedicated, but yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
And yeah, so thank you so much for joining me today. Is there anything else you would like to share, or how can people get a hold of you if they're interested in what your offerings are?
Well, you can find my website, which is Aletheia Sophia. No doubt there's a little link somewhere. And also the house, which is leconte.eu. You'll find me there absolutely every single day of the year.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Hmm.
Thank you. And I like to do a little reflection with the guests that come in. So if you were to think of one word that represents life, what would you say?
Generosity.
And one word for death?
Depth.
Mm. And one word for the beyond?
Immortal.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much, Aletheia, for joining
Thank
us today and
you.
everything that you do.
Thank you so much, Beauty. I wish you so well.
Thank
God
you.
bless.
You as well. Thank you. See you.
Baby, let's talk about you and me. We're not the one and only. It's going to happen to everybody. Yeah, baby, say it isn't so, baby. It's the truth, don't you know, baby? We're all consciousness, living out our reason in a world of endless stories. Said from the beginning, we race to the finish as we face the harsh reality. We don't remember